This episode of Trifles is brought to you by listeners like you, who support us on Patreon and Substack. To learn more, go to patreon.com/trifles or trifles.substack.com. Welcome to Trifles, a weekly podcast about the Sherlock Holmes stories.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Yes, the lip was twisted, the soldier was blanched, and the men were dancing, but there are so many other details to pick apart in the stories.
Pray, be precise as to details.
You know the plots, but what about the minutiae? Have you ever stopped to wonder about whatever happened to Inspector Gregson? Or Mrs. Hudson's husband? Or of Holmes's early clients?
You are very inquisitive, Mr. Holmes.
It is my business to know what other people don't know.
Scott Monty and Burt Wolder will have the answers to these questions and more in Trifles.
The game's afoot.
Episode 463, Lucky 13. Hello and welcome to Trifles, the podcast where we discuss the minutiae in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Burt Wolder.
And are you feeling lucky, punk?
I'm feeling really lucky. And you know why I'm feeling really lucky?
Why?
Because the topic that we have today is 13. And you want to know why that's special from a Trifles podcast perspective?
I would love to.
I'll tell you why, buddy. Because this is episode 463.
Yeah.
And if you add those digits together, you get...
Oh, 13.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
But it's just a trifle. Bye-bye.
It's a trifling coincidence. Yeah. And tomorrow is November 13th, so that works out, which is not a Friday this year, but... We will be talking in this episode about the number 13 and its various appearances in the Sherlock Holmes stories, as well as the significance of it in culture over the years. But before we do that, we just wanted to remind you that you can support the show in a couple of ways, financially and in other ways, non-financially. Let's get the financial part out of the way first. First of all, there is Patreon. And then there is Substack. In both of these instances, you can either subscribe on an annual or a monthly basis, whatever works for you, for as little as $1 a month. And that helps us to do what we do here. The research, the hosting costs, the gifts, etc. And we should remind people that all of our paid supporters are entered for a drawing at the end of every month, where we spin a prize wheel, and if your number comes up, your name comes up, then you will win a back issue of the Baker Street Journal. So stay tuned for that if you are among those lucky people. But there's also a non-monetary way to support us as well. You can rate us or review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you happen to listen to the show that has rating and reviewing capabilities. And of course, you can also share the show with other people, other interested Sherlockians, people who may not have discovered us yet. And boy, do we have a very long back catalog for people to go through. We are now rounding the corner on the penultimate month of our 9th season. I haven't heard from our bosses yet, Bert, but I think there's a 10th season coming.
Oh, good.
The powers that be will continue us on into the future. So.
Oh, good. Can we get a 2.8% raise for inflation?
Well, no, inflation is like higher than that, isn't it? I'm hoping it is.
Okay. Well,
but what's 2.8% of zero? Anyway, know that one. The math is not mathing. Well, however you choose to support us, folks, we appreciate it, and we'll see you just after these tunes. See, here we are, I promise. Well, this episode takes us into the realm of luck, fortune, things like that. And the number 13. 13 in particular. Do we have any kind of history, Bert, of how the world has viewed the number 13 and why?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a good topic. Well, first of all, I think the actual description of the fear of 13 is called triskaidekaphobia.
That's correct.
But
I'm afraid to say that.
Yeah, with good reason. There's centuries of tradition here. A lot of it is Christian culture. The Last Supper had 13 people present, Jesus and his 12 apostles.
Oh.
The 12th person to join the group, the 13th person to join the group was Judas Iscariot, the betrayer, and that led to the superstition around 13 at dinner, which Agatha Christie made a great profit over in one of her books. The idea was that if 13 people dined together, the first person to get up from the table might die within the year, and so people went to a lot of great lengths, to avoid seating 13 people. And then it's the day of the week, sort of goes back to the Christian tradition. Friday was considered unlucky. It was the day of Jesus' crucifixion, I think. See, I'm not really, obviously,
well,
I'm not
Friday,
really
yeah, but not the 13th
Christian.
necessarily, no.
No, but I mean Good Friday. And so the combination of the two, Friday the 13th was really ominous, I think particularly in the 19th century. And then architecture, there were a lot of buildings in London, all over the world, but that omitted house number 13 on streets like, I don't think Fleet Street has a number 13. I don't think Oxford Street does. And there was no 13th floor in many hotels. And then, there were clubs. There was a 13 club that was founded. Actually, there were a couple of 13 clubs, I think. One founded in 1880 and one founded in 1890, if I remember correctly. And these kinds of clubs, were people who banded together to put paid to all of these superstitions. So they would have dinners on the 13th of the month. They would have 13 people around the table. They would begin a meeting by smashing a mirror. They would walk under a ladder.
They'd eat a black cat.
They were asked to spill salt. I think there was an Avengers episode years ago with Diana Rigg and Patrick Macnee where they encountered one of these groups and they sort of spoofed it. And, some people in the Victorian and Edwardian eras were skeptics and pushed back against those sorts of folk beliefs. But so there is a history there.
That's amazing. We should also note that the original American colonies consisted of 13 colonies. And here's an interesting one. I didn't know this. The number 13 was not used in the Indianapolis 500 from 1915 to 2002. And it specifically was not permitted for use between 1926 and 2002.
Oh, I'll bet there are no football players or baseball players who were number 13. I don't know that, but I imagine that would be silly to do that.
That's a good question. In rugby league, the jersey number 13 is worn by the starting loose forward or lock forward in most competitions.
Really?
And rugby union, jersey number 13 is worn by the outside center. So there you go. And in cycling sports, like the Tour de France, riders assigned number 13 will often wear their race bib upside down. So there you have it. So lots of superstition in history and in culture before we actually get to the Sherlock Holmes stories. But that doesn't preclude, and I don't think it has any bearing on the use of 13 in the canon. Although, let's find out as we dive down this Triskaideka rabbit hole.
Well, the first time 13, 13 shows up frequently in the canon. There will be a page 13 in every edition of the canon. I guarantee that. But usually is an address. And in the very first case, A Study in Scarlet, 13 turns up as 13 Duncan Street, HOUN's Ditch, which is described as a weary way from here. And what's happened here, of course, is that Holmes and Watson have placed an advertisement in the newspaper about the gold ring that they found in the Brixton Road. And an old woman turns up, and of course she's asked, she invents this story about her girl Sally, who was married a year ago, and she gives her address as 13 Duncan Street, Houndsditch, a weary way from here. And
that's where Holmes followed her, right? He heard her yell to the cab from the other side of the street, "Drive to 13 Duncan Street, Houndsditch." And he hopped off before they came to the door. He was there with her cab and plopped down. The driver jumped down. He opened the door and stood there expectantly, and nothing and no one came out. Yeah. He was groping around frantically in the empty cabin, giving vent to the finest assorted collection of oaths I've ever listened to. No sign or trace of the passenger. And on inquiring at number 13, we found the house belonged to a respectable paper hanger named Keswick, and that no one of the name either Sawyer or Dennis had ever been heard of there.
Bum, bum, bum.
So there we go. The feeble old woman, Watson said, was able to get out of the cab while it was in motion without either you or the driver seeing her? Old woman be damned, said Sherlock Holmes. We were the old women to be so taken in.
Yeah. Well, 13. And then in the novel The Valley of Fear, you will find number 13 popping up in The Message from Porlock, which is a series of numbers and words and things, 534 C2 13. Et cetera, et cetera.
13. And do we know what 13 stood for in that particular entry?
It is a cipher message, of course, and in the whole scene, we find out that Holmes eventually does decipher it, but I don't know that.
Yeah, it was page 534.
Yeah.
Right. C2 would have been column 2.
Column 2, right.
And then 13th word. Yeah, number 13 is Maratha. Not, I fear, a very auspicious beginning. That was in Whitaker's Almanac. And instead, they there we are. They were too current in their almanacking, I believe, and they determined that they needed to get last year's almanac. So we pay the price, Watson, for being too up to date. We are before our time and suffer the usual penalties. Being the 7th of January, we have very properly laid in the new almanac. It's more than likely that Porlock took his message from the old one. Number 13 in last year's almanac was there.
There.
Oh, now. Dun, dun, dun. Dun. There.
Yeah.
Oh. Werewolf. There. There, wolf.
There, wolf. And then in The Adventure of the Dying Detective, the evil Culverton Smith lives at 13 Lower Burke Street. There you go.
Yeah, another address. We don't. The interesting that the two times that addresses come up with the number 13, they are associated with someone trying to hoodwink Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, well, that's true. But then there are plenty more addresses in Lady Frances Carfax. Holmes, is hot on the trail of Lady Frances, and investigates a particular premises, I mean, without getting into the story, and finds an old woman in a coffin, and the woman was tended to by Dr. Horsam of 13 Furbank Villas. And,
That.
That's just yet another pin in the map.
Yes.
But when we get to Mazarin Stone, we get to an actual date.
Oh.
So there's a train. So we're in the Mazarin Stone, of course, and there's a lot of conversation with Count Silvius, and Holmes has the history of Miss Minnie Warrender and a robbery in the train de luxe to the Riviera on February 13, 1892.
Do we know if that was a Friday?
I don't. I hope it was.
It was a Saturday.
Oops.
Sadly. Close. Close. Well, similarly, and this is fascinating as we talk about nefariousness and the number 13 with respect to addresses and the Bruce Partington plans. When Holmes was questioning Mycroft as to who might be possible, who might be a suspect for taking these submarine plans and doing something with them. He gets the note from Mycroft, says, there are numerous small fry, but few who would handle so big an affair. The only men worth considering are Adolph Meyer of 13 Great George Street, Westminster, Louis Larothiere of Camden Mansions, Notting Hill, and Hugo Oberstein, 13 Coalfield Gardens, Kensington. And that is where Holmes finds himself, at Coalfield Gardens.
Yes, Mr. Hugo Oberstein. Well, I think that's it, isn't it?
No,
I mean,
let's do one other thing here. I want you to recall in one of your signature stories, one that you are quite closely associated with, thanks to the Cornish horrors. Do you remember, as that one opens, how Watson tells us that he has waited a period of time?
In the Devil's Foot.
Yes.
But does he use the word, the number of the word
Many
13?
of my readers may retain some recollection of what was called at the time the Cornish horror, though a most imperfect account of the matter reached the London press. Now, after 13 years, I will give the true details of this inconceivable affair to the public.
Right.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, that's pretty good.
And here's a really good one. See if you can pick this out. I'll just, without context, I'm going to read an excerpt. Now, for some space, the revelers stood agape, unable to understand all that had been done in such haste. But anon their bemused wits awoke to the nature of the deed which was like to be done on the moorlands. Everything was now in uproar, some calling for their pistols, some for their horses, and some for another flask of wine.
Hear, hear.
But at length some sense came back to their crazed minds, and the whole of them, 13 in number, took horse and started in pursuit.
Well, that has to be the HOUN. That has to be Hugo and his band of
Hugo's
bums.
companions. Yeah, 13 in number. Very, almost like the Last Supper that you referenced there.
Yeah, doomed from the start. Yeah. Well, and then you do have some other references there. You know, in the Missing Three-Quarter, there's a bill that Holmes turns up. A bill this receipted bill for 13 guineas paid by Mr. Godfrey Staunton last month to Dr. Leslie Armstrong of Cambridge.
Yes.
I picked it out from among the papers upon his desk. And the doctor does not want to explain why, but we will soon find out. Yeah, very good.
And I will leave you with this final thought. What is the 13th rule in the code of the sainted Joseph Smith? What? You don't know this one?
Look both ways before you cross the street?
No, it's a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Oh, of course.
No, it's let every maiden of the true faith marry one of the elect, for if she wed a Gentile, she commits a grievous sin.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. So there you have it.
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
And, as my soon-to-be 12-year-old daughter will tell you, the number 13 is the product of adding 6, 7. And that is just a trifle.
Wait a minute, what does it mean? What does it mean?
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Please join us again next week for another installment of Trifles. Show notes are available on SherlockHolmesPodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and be sure to check out our longer show, I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, where we interview notable Sherlockians and share news of the Sherlockian world.
You've taken my breath away, Mr. Holmes.
Hugo Oberstein, 13 Caulfield Gardens, Kensington.